So today we're going to do a deep dive into the 80-20 principle,
Okay.
or sometimes it's called the Pareto Principle. And you sent this in, I believe it was the full audiobook of the 80-20 Principle by Richard Koch.
Yes, that's right.
And just getting ready for this deep dive has been an adventure in itself.
Yeah.
I had no idea how much this principle kind of pops up everywhere.
Right.
In business and in personal life and even history.
It's one of those things that, like, once you see it, you start noticing it everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, oh,
Yeah,
there it
yeah.
is again.
So let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
The 80-20 principle states that 80% of our results come from just 20% of our efforts.
That's it.
It's about understanding that imbalance,
Right.
which, to be honest, when I first
Yeah.
read about that, I was like, what?
That was crazy.
It's kind of mind-blowing.
For sure.
Yeah.
And there's this great example in the book. It says, imagine 20% of beer drinkers consuming 80% of all the beer produced. I like that one.
It really kind of paints a picture, doesn't it?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Highlights the idea that things aren't always as evenly distributed as we might think.
Right. And this actually, this principle, it's not like some newfangled idea.
No.
The book talks about how this all started back in 1897 with this Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto.
Yeah.
And he was looking at wealth distribution
Mm-hmm.
and saw this 80-20 pattern.
Right.
80% of the wealth was held by just 20% of the people.
20%.
And the fascinating thing is that he found this pattern
Yeah.
in other areas too.
Yeah.
Like land ownership.
Like all over the place.
Yeah, it's like he kind of stumbled on this universal law
Yeah, he really did.
that was kind of governing things.
Yeah, for sure.
And what struck me was that this principle was practically ignored in the U.S. for decades.
It's true, yeah.
But guess who saw its potential?
Good.
Japan.
Japan, that's right.
They embraced the 80-20 principle, and they
Ah.
used it to drive their post-war economic boom, which makes you wonder what could have happened if the U.S. had adopted it sooner.
Right.
So how did the business world catch on?
Well, the 80-20 principle, it kind of found its way into the quality movement, you know, and through pioneers like Joseph Duran
Okay.
and W. Edwards Deming. They applied it to, like, revolutionize manufacturing processes, focusing on eliminating defects, improving efficiency.
Yeah. So the 80-20 principle became a secret weapon for boosting profits and
Yeah.
streamlining operations.
Exactly.
The book dives into some compelling case studies.
Yes, it does.
And one of them is this story of this electronics instrumentation company, and they were selling this whole range of products.
Mm-hmm.
But when they applied the 80-20 analysis,
Yeah,
they realized that only a small handful were actually driving the majority of their profits.
that's right.
So all that effort on products that weren't really contributing to the bottom line.
That's the 80-20.
So did they just ditch all those less profitable products?
Not necessarily, no.
No.
Like, the 80-20 principle isn't just about cutting things out.
Okay.
It's about understanding where to focus your energy.
Okay.
You know, so they likely would have looked for ways to either improve the profitability of those less popular products
Gotcha.
or streamline their offerings,
Yeah.
you know, to what was working best.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's about working smarter, not necessarily less.
Right.
This reminds me of the story about Corning.
Oh, yeah.
They actually turned away business to simplify their operations,
That's right.
which seems counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but it led to higher profits.
It's a powerful example of how complexity can actually destroy value.
Okay.
Sometimes less is truly more, you know.
Yeah.
It's about being strategic,
Right.
intentional with your efforts.
Okay. So how can we apply this to, say, marketing?
Well, think about your customers. Are you spreading your efforts too thin, you know, trying to reach everyone?
Right.
The 80-20 principle suggests that focusing on the 20% of customers
Okay.
who generate 80% of your revenue can be far more effective.
Yeah. The book talks about American Express and how they targeted their top spending customers
Yes?
with this highly successful campaign.
Uh-huh.
It really makes you think, who are my most valuable customers?
Right.
And how can I cater to them even better?
That's the kind of thinking
Yeah.
the 80-20 principle encourages.
Okay.
It's about identifying those vital few,
Mm-hmm.
really understanding what makes them tick.
Yeah. So how does this tie into sales teams
Okay.
and individual salespeople?
Well, instead of just looking at, you know, traditional sales metrics,
Right.
like calls made or deals closed, the 80-20 principle encourages us to look deeper. You know,
Yeah.
it's about identifying your top performers, your sales superstars,
Right.
understanding what sets them apart. It might be their product knowledge,
Yeah.
you know, their ability to build relationships,
Right.
or their knack for closing, you know, those high value deals.
the book mentions Nicholas Burson,
Yes.
who was this Romanian immigrant,
Right.
and he became a top real estate broker in the U.S.
Exactly.
And he focused on building these long-term relationships, offering personalized service, and getting repeat business.
Classic example.
It's a classic example of focusing on the vital few relationships
Right.
to achieve extraordinary results.
That's right.
And what's interesting is that while he focused on personalized service for his clients,
Yeah.
he didn't try to be everything to everyone.
Right.
Right? He understood his strengths.
He did.
And he played to them.
Exactly.
And that's a key aspect of the 80-20 principle.
Yes, it is.
It's fascinating how this principle discovered over a century ago is still so relevant today.
It really is.
It's almost like a secret code
Yeah.
for unlocking success in so many areas.
For sure. And here's where things get really personal. You know, the 80-20 principle isn't just for the boardroom.
Right.
It can be a game changer for personal growth and happiness, too.
Okay, now this is where I got really hooked. The whole idea of time mastery, that 80% of our happiness and achievements likely come from just 20% of our activities, it's so empowering.
Yeah, it challenges the idea that we're all constantly short on time. You know, it's more about recognizing how we often squander our time on low-value tasks.
Oh, tell me about it. Like those evenings I spend scrolling mindlessly on social media.
Right, exactly. You know,
Guilty as charged.
we've all been there.
Yeah.
The key is to identify what the book calls our islands, you know, of happiness and achievement.
Okay.
Those activities that genuinely bring us joy and a sense of accomplishment.
And get this, the book tells the story of William Gladstone,
Oh, yeah?
who was the Prime Minister of Britain 4 times.
I know the story.
Apparently he was a total workaholic.
Yeah.
But even he made time for things like travel theater and even self-flagellation.
With what?
Yeah, I know, right?
Okay,
Seems a bit extreme.
a little bit, yeah.
But the point is, even someone as busy as Gladstone
Yeah.
recognized the importance of prioritizing activities that brought him joy and recharged his energy.
Now, I wouldn't recommend the self-flagellation part.
No.
But Gladstone's story does emphasize a crucial point, you know.
Yeah.
It's about being intentional with our time and making sure we're making space for the things that truly matter.
Right. So it's not about finding more time. It's about using the time we have more wisely.
That's it.
It's making choices about what deserves our attention and what doesn't.
Absolutely. And this idea, you know, extends to our relationships as well.
Okay.
We often think that having a ton of friends and connections is the key to happiness and success.
Right.
But the 80-20 principle suggests that it's about quality over quantity.
I love that it's like that saying, I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The book dives into some fascinating research from anthropology called the village theory,
Okay.
which suggests that humans are only capable of maintaining a limited number of truly meaningful relationships.
That actually makes a lot of sense. You can't be everyone's best friend. You can spread yourself too thin trying to maintain too many relationships.
Yeah. You can.
It's like we each have a limited capacity for deep connection.
That's right.
And this connects back to the idea of focusing on your vital few, not just in business, but in your personal life as well.
Yes.
Who are those people who truly support and encourage you, who challenges you to be your best self?
Right.
Those are the relationships to invest in.
Those are the ones.
So it's not just about having a bunch of friends on social media. It's about cultivating those deeper, more meaningful connections.
It's deeper, for sure.
And the book makes this really interesting point about the importance of allies when it comes to achieving great things.
He does.
And it highlights examples from history like Jesus Christ and his reliance on key figures like John the Baptist and St. Paul.
Right. They were helping him spread his message.
Yeah, those were the people who helped amplify his message and spread his teachings. I guess in a way they were his influencers.
Exactly.
Back then.
Yeah. So when we think about applying the 80-20 principle to our relationships, it's not just about, you know, those close personal connections.
Right.
It's also about recognizing the people who can be our allies in our careers, our creative endeavors, or whatever we're passionate about.
It's like building a strategic network of support, understanding that we can achieve more together than we can alone.
That's it.
And all this talk about relationships and happiness makes me think about those who believe that happiness is something that just happens to you.
Right.
Right? Like it's outside of your control.
The book challenges that idea, you know, suggesting that we actually have more control over our happiness than we often realize.
Okay.
It's about understanding that our happiness is shaped by our thoughts, actions, and environment,
Okay.
and that we can make choices that contribute to our overall well-being.
I was really intrigued by the 6 daily happiness habits the book outlines. Things
Right.
like practicing gratitude, engaging in meaningful activities, and nurturing our relationships.
It's about recognizing that happiness is an ongoing practice. It's
Hmm.
not just a destination.
Right.
And it's so easy to lose sight of that in the midst of our busy lives.
I know. Sometimes I get so caught up in the have-tos that I forget about the things that actually bring me joy.
Yeah, it's a common trap.
Yeah.
The 80-20 principle reminds us to create space for those islands of happiness,
Okay.
to make them bigger and more frequent.
Now, speaking of achievement and success,
Mhm.
the book also talks about the superstar effect,
Yes.
which seems pretty relevant in today's world.
It's this fascinating phenomenon, where a small percentage of top performers in any field capture a disproportionate share of the rewards.
Okay.
Think about athletes, musicians, CEOs, entrepreneurs.
Right.
It's often those at the very top,
Yes.
who are reaping the biggest benefits.
It's like the 80-20 principle on steroids.
It is.
And it makes me wonder, is it just luck, or are there things these superstars are doing differently?
Well, the book suggests that, a big part of it comes down to specialization
Okay.
and becoming a top performer in a specific niche. It's about, really honing your craft and becoming an expert in your chosen area.
I'm starting to see a theme here, focus, focus, focus.
That's right.
And the book gives examples from all sorts of fields, sports, entertainment, law. It's everywhere.
It really is. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, right? As the world becomes more competitive, there's also more opportunity for those who can truly stand out.
Yeah.
The book actually lays out 10 golden rules for career success.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some of these golden rules?
They emphasize the importance of specialization, of course,
Okay.
but also continuous learning,
Mm.
being willing to take risks and leveraging your skills and network to achieve your goals.
So it's not just about working hard, it's about working smart, focusing on the right things, and building a career that aligns with your strengths and passions.
Exactly. And speaking of being strategic, let's not forget about money.
Okay, money talk, always a good topic.
The 80-20 principle has some powerful implications for how we manage our finances and investments. The book stresses the importance of understanding the power of compound interest and making wise investment decisions. And here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
It challenges conventional wisdom about diversification,
Okay.
suggesting that focusing on a few areas where you have expertise can actually lead to greater returns.
Really? So instead of spreading your money across a ton of different investments, it's better to be more selective and focus on where you have an edge.
That's the idea.
Okay.
It's about leveraging your knowledge and understanding to make smarter investment choices.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to investing.
That's what the 80-20 principle does.
Yeah.
It makes you question assumptions and look at things from a different perspective.
So what are some of the specific strategies the book recommends for investing?
What really emphasizes the importance of having a clear investment philosophy
Okay.
that aligns with your personality and risk tolerance.
Gotcha.
It also encourages you to really understand the investments you're making, rather than just blindly following the crowd.
That's sound advice.
Yeah.
I know I've been guilty of jumping on investment bandwagons without really understanding what I was getting into.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
The key is to learn from those experiences and become a more informed investor.
So it's back to that idea of working smarter, not harder.
That's it.
Being strategic and intentional, even with our money.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that building wealth isn't just about luck or timing.
Right.
It's about having a solid plan and making informed decisions, consistently over time.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from business strategy to personal growth to investing.
We have.
I have to say, this deep dive has really opened my eyes to how pervasive the 80-20 principle is.
Yeah, it's one of those concepts that once you start looking for it, you see it everywhere.
Right.
And that's precisely what Koch wants us to do, to see the world through an 80-20 lens.
Right. He's not just presenting this as some interesting observation.
Yep.
He's making a case for how it can help us unlock a more efficient and fulfilling life.
For sure.
But I have to admit, sometimes it feels like the 80-20 principle is just highlighting all the ways we're doing things wrong.
I can see why you might feel that way.
Yeah.
It does expose a lot of waste, in our systems and processes.
Yeah.
In business, in society, and even in our personal lives.
Right. Like he's saying, look at all this wasted effort. Imagine what you could achieve if you focused on the right things.
Right.
It's a bit daunting, to be honest.
It's definitely a call to action.
Yeah.
But I think the beauty of the 80-20 principle is that it gives us a framework for improvement.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
not about throwing everything out and starting over.
Right.
It's about making targeted adjustments,
Yeah.
shifting our focus
Mm.
and leveraging those imbalances to our advantage.
So where do we even begin? How do we take this principle and actually apply it to make real change?
Well, Koch offers a range of strategies, and some of them might seem a bit radical. For example, he's a big proponent of simplifying business operations.
Okay.
He argues that complexity often leads to decreased profits and a lot of wasted effort.
It's like that KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He points to the Corning example we talked about earlier,
Right.
how they intentionally turned away business to streamline their focus.
Yeah.
It was a bold move, but it ultimately paid off.
So it's about being willing to make tough choices,
Yeah.
even if they seem counterintuitive at first.
And he also challenges the traditional notion of being completely customer-centric.
Okay.
While listening to your customers is important, Koch argues that you shouldn't try to please everyone.
That's interesting. I feel like we're always told that the customer is always right.
Right. But the 80-20 principle suggests that not all customers are created equal.
Okay.
Koch advocates for focusing on the vital few, those customers who generate the most value for your business.
Gotcha.
It's about going above and beyond to delight those customers, while recognizing that you might need to let go of those who are less profitable or more demanding.
I can see how that would be controversial.
Yeah.
But it makes sense from a business perspective.
It does.
It's about aligning your efforts with your goals.
And this focus on the vital few applies to employees as well.
Okay.
Koch suggests that businesses should identify their top performers, their sales superstars,
Right.
and create an environment where they can thrive.
It's about recognizing that talent isn't evenly distributed.
Exactly. And he argues that traditional incentive structures often fail to reward those who are truly driving the business forward.
So it's not just about working hard, it's about having the right skills and being in the right role to maximize your impact.
Precisely. And as we've seen, this applies to our personal lives as well.
Right.
Koch reminds us that we have more control over our happiness than we often realize.
He really emphasizes the importance of being intentional with our time and energy.
He suggests identifying those islands of happiness and achievement, those activities that bring us joy and a sense of fulfillment,
Right.
and then finding ways to expand those islands.
It's about being mindful of how we're spending our time and making choices that align with our values and goals.
And he offers some really practical strategies like practicing gratitude, nurturing our relationships, and pursuing activities that bring us joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's about making happiness an ongoing practice, not just some distant goal.
I love that it's so easy to get caught up in the pursuit of happiness and forget that it's often the small everyday things that bring us the most joy.
It's about savoring those moments and making them a priority.
Yeah.
And ultimately, Koch's message is one of optimism and empowerment.
Okay.
He sees the 80-20 principle as a tool for unlocking our potential, for identifying the areas where we can make the greatest impact,
Right.
and for creating a more fulfilling and effective life.
So if we had to distill the essence of the 80-20 principle into a single sentence, what would it be?
I think it would be this focus on the vital few.
Okay.
Eliminate the trivial many and leverage the power of imbalance to create a more fulfilling and effective life.
Wow, that's powerful, and I think it perfectly captures the spirit of this book.
Yeah.
It's a challenge to rethink our assumptions, to embrace a new way of thinking, and to unlock the extraordinary potential that lies within each of us.
It's a journey of self-discovery,
Yeah.
of identifying our strengths and passions, and of focusing on the areas where we can make the greatest difference.
So to our listeners, we leave you with this challenge. How will you apply the 80-20 principle in your own life?
Yeah.
What are your vital few?
What are they?
And how can you focus on them to create the results you desire?
The answers are within you, too.
Yeah.
Take the time to reflect, to analyze, and to take action. The power to unlock your potential is in your hands.
That's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.